let's bring up one of the studies or one of the trends that you got really invested in. A couple of years ago, there was this image of a dress that went really viral.
February 26th, 2015, yes.
Yeah, 2015. I remember it as well. And some people saw that dress as white and gold, and some people saw that dress as black and blue.
That's correct.
So on a neurological level, what's happening when we look at the dress? Why did different people see different colors?
Well, first of all, on a neurological level, I cannot help you. We don't know the neuroscience of this for many reasons. Neuroimaging, which is fMRI for most part, does not have the resolution to tell us. So neuroimaging fMRI is actually a second order proxy signal. Like we're measuring not the brain or brain activity, we're measuring blood flow changes from blood oxygenation levels. It's a second order proxy. There's a lot of nonlinearities involved. It's very hard to infer what's going on with the neural activity from just what's called the bold activity, the bold signal. And there's lots of problems. Like every voxel is millions of neurons, and there's a time course, there's dynamics. So don't get too excited about the neuroscience of this. And to my knowledge, nobody studies with like animals. So we don't really know what happens in the brain. What I can tell you from our research is what happens in the mind. Yes. So first of all, the important thing to notice, it's not about the dress. So if I should have brought the dress, I have it.
Oh,
yes.
The original?
One of
a replica.
No, well, not a replica. One of the original run.
Oh,
like there was an original.
Yeah.
Like an original sales run. Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
I have it. I should have brought it. Anyway, if I had the dress right here,
yes.
Just imagine that.
Yes.
In this beautiful light, natural light, it would be unequivocally black and blue. Nobody disagrees about that. Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first important thing to realize is this is not about the dress. This is about uncertainty. Where the uncertainty comes from is I asked the person who took the picture of the dress, Cecilia Bleasdale, what happened. And she said she took the picture image on a Samsung Galaxy cell phone inside, yes, under artificial lighting. But because the lighting was so murky, she overexposed it with a flash. So just by chance, the light from the flash and the artificial light mixed so that people cannot tell if it was what the lighting was. And that's going to be very important in a moment, yes? So in other words, people, observers, have a very impoverished information. In other words, there's a lot of uncertainty. So the important concept that people need to keep in mind, to understand this in a moment, is uncertainty and uncertainty management, yes? So in other words, as we just said, yes, that your brain, your mind is filtering reality. Yeah. Your brain and your mind is not stupid. It is aware that it might have filtered out lost, very relevant information. That opens up. If you filter by relevance, you could have false negatives and false positives, right? Mm-hmm. You miss important information.
Yep.
So the mind is aware of this necessity to manage uncertainty, yes? In this case, the lighting information is missing. It doesn't have it. Yeah. Now, why does that matter? Under normal conditions, we just talked about the bat already. So the bat perceives its environment by literally shrieking, and much like in sonar and radar,
yep,
you image the world by the echo of those shrieks. Yes.
Yep.
You don't do that. You don't shoot a light ray out of your eye. Yes. That people thought that 2,500 years ago. It's called the emission theory of vision. The idea was that if that was the old idea.
Yeah.
Like you shoot light out of your eyes and then you image the world by receiving the light again. It's called the emission theory of light. I think Aristotle believed that, but I'm not 100% sure. But it's thereabouts, early philosophers, yes. We don't believe that anymore. We have a purely intromission theory. In other words, you image the world by receiving the light. So what happens is, so why is this green, for instance? Sunlight hits this block, this Lego block. And the Lego block absorbs the short wavelengths and the long wavelengths, and it reflects the middle wavelengths. That will about 510, maybe 550 nanometers. That will look green to you. Yes? So if you see grass, you just see an inefficient solar panel. Yes? So basically the photosynthesis does not use middle wavelength light. It reflects it back into the environment. That's why actual solar panels are black, because it absorbs all of the light. Yes. So the idea is what you see is an interaction between the light that comes in and the light that bounces off this. So if you, for instance, hit this with a laser pointer that is strictly red, so 750 nanometers or something like that, and you image this, it would not look like anything because the red light is absorbed by this. We can show a laser pointer. We can test it.
Make a list of things you should write.
But we can test this. This is a filter for long wavelengths, and it reflects green wavelengths. So why am I telling you this? So in other words, your brain always has to make an inference. By the way, what's an inference? What's an inference? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but it's going to be important.
I'm trying to be careful with my words.
Yes, me too. That's why I'm asking.
I hesitant to use the word reasonable, but let's say a rational conclusion based on your findings.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. It's a decision.
Yeah.
It's a reasonable decision.
Yeah.
Based on the data you have, and we're talking about sensory data here, we conclude that something is the case. Yes. Yep. I can summarize most of perceptual research by that. Your perception is not you perceiving what's out there. Your brain makes decisions based on the available information, what is out there. It's a decision, it's an inference. Helmholtz called this an unconscious inference, but it's always a decision. And the important thing, and as an investment banker, you notice, decisions can be wrong. It's not a proof. You're not proving anything. Just ask long-term capital management. Yes. Oh, no, you can't because they went out of business. Yes. A long time ago. So the idea is decisions, even reasonable decisions, can be wrong. And that's basically what's going on here. So basically your brain understands from its history, from its learning history, that it's making these inferences, it's taking the light into account. But in this case, the light is undefined. So we have to make an assumption. Okay, so the brain can make one of two things, say, oh no, I don't know what the light is. So you could signal to you, we don't know. But the brain basically never does that. Never. It never tells you we don't have enough information. It always tells you, actually it doesn't tell you that. It always gives you the result that it thinks is the most plausible, most likely, or the most, from an evolutionary game theory perspective, the most conducive to help you for survival. I'll give you another example before I go into the dress specifically. A lot of people see, if you look at these clouds out there, they see like faces in the clouds, They see objects. The reason for that is it's called pareidolia. The reason for that is in the evolutionary game theory matrix, if you have, let's say you were running around the forest, usually only have partial information of the environment. Mm-hmm. I mean, predators and prey, you will not see them fully. You will see parts. Maybe see a leg, or maybe see a head, or something like that. Maybe only a part of maybe on an eye or something like that. And if you wait until you have all the information, maybe you see the full animal, by that time it's too late. They have run away, or maybe they've already pounced on you. So this is where it goes with evolutionary history. So your ancestors that just were like, wait, we need to wait until we have all the information. They died, or they didn't make it. They didn't outcompete the ones that say, you know what? Let's make, with our assumptions, let's jump to conclusions. Sometimes the conclusions are wrong, but maybe we can live with that. Let's say you assume there's a face out there, but there's not. Well, maybe it's a little scary, but ultimately, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know? Whereas if you make the other, so that's a false positive, that's fine. Whereas make the other inference, like, oh no, there was a predator out there, but you missed it. You could die. Yes. Yeah. Or as a prey, like let's say you're hunting. You missed your prey. So in other words, the consequences of false negatives are much more serious than the consequences of a false positive. So in this particular case, the brain errs on the side of false positives, accepts many thousands of false positives for one false negative, which is why you see these faces on your wallpaper, in the clouds, everywhere, textures. Okay, let's go back to the dress. So and I like these long form discussions because we can really lay this out. Because, on the news, they're like, okay, 2 minutes to explain this. They're like, oh no.
Go.
Yes. But anyway, so the light information is undefined. So your brain has to make a decision or an assumption. To make the decision, the brain has to make an assumption of what the lighting was because it's undefined. It could be artificial light, indoor light, incandescent light, which is long wavelength, or it could be natural light, which is more broad spectrum, but has a blue bias, short wavelength bias. Let's talk about this. if you assume the light was outdoor light, blue wavelengths, more power in the short wavelength spectrum. Let's say you assume that for whatever reason. Then your brain would mentally subtract that from the image. Because it's like, I know there's like blue all over the place, so subtract blue.
Okay.
It's called color constancy. The idea is your shirt, my shirt, although it's black, so whatever. But let's say some color looks the same inside and outside subjectively. Even though if you did a robot, it's actually one of the biggest. So I sometimes consult with my friends in robotics, and they're like, we can't make our like robot work because it's not, the images can't do it. I'm like, yeah, but the information is not in images. The images, there's extra image information that you need to for the robot to navigate. Yes. So what I'm saying is the robot would see the same shirt, different colors inside and outside, because it is. The wavelengths that come off the shirt are different. The wavelength looks different because the input light is different from inside and outside. So you have to compensate for that. Mm-hmm. And unless you do that, the robot would conclude, oh, these are two different objects. Yes, they're not. So your job evolutionary is not to say necessarily what specific hue that is, but is it the same object or not? Okay, anyway. So let's say you assume it's natural light for whatever reason. And your brain, by the way, not you. Your brain does this for you. This is an unconscious offline process. Yes, color constancy doesn't take any conscious effort. As a matter of fact, I think you cannot even override this subjectively. It's unconscious. But anyways, to make a long story short, it goes back to kindergarten color science. So I say subtract blue from the entire image. It will then assume a yellow tint. Yes? So far so good?
Okay.
So if you assume it's blue light, the image will start looking yellowish. It's the other case. Let's say your brain assumes for whatever reason artificial light, which is a long wavelength bias, yellowish. If you subtract that, now this should be easy. What's on the other side of yellow? What's on the other side of yellow?
Blue again.
Wonderful, blue.
Yeah.
So if you subtract yellow, the blue, it should get a bluish tint. Yes. So far so good. That's the logic. Now comes the only missing link that we could show empirically, and that is why would somebody, everything else being equal, assume one or the other lighting? And the answer is experience. Now, can you think of any experience that you might have had in your lifetime that would make you assume one light more than the other light?
Yeah.
And that is?
Let's say if you stay up at night more than the others.
Very good.
Yeah.
So chronotype is very stable genetically, by the way, after age 18 to 20, yes? So basically, if you're a night owl, meaning you like to stay up and go to bed at night, or whether you are what's called a lark, you get up dawn and rise and go to bed at dusk, is pretty much genetically determined, yes? Mm-hmm. So it's like a tendency you have. Even if I put you in a bunker underground without any outside light cues, you will assume that pattern, yes? All right. And we would both agree that the people who are morning people, everything else being equal, will be exposed to more daylight, more sunlight than the night owls, yes? Who can be exposed to more artificial light, yes? And to make a long story short, we were able to show that. We were able to show that morning people, self-identified morning people, are more likely to assume that the lighting was sunlight or daylight or outdoor light, and will then more likely see the rest as white and gold, because you subtract blue, that makes it white and gold. And people who are self-identified night owls are more likely to assume that it was artificial light. We can show that, we asked them. And if they assume that, they're more likely to see it as black and blue. Now, there's an important caveat here, and that's why I like these long-form conversations. So if you have like a 1 or 2 minute video of me online somewhere where I say that, in the comments there will always be someone like says, well, but I'm a morning person and I see it as black and blue. The important caveat here is everything else being equal, but everything else will not be equal for every individual person. So this is not about sleep patterns per se. It's that the sleep patterns are a proxy for light exposure. I mean, I can't ask you, hey, what was your daylight exposure in your lifetime relative to other people? You wouldn't know. But I can use these sleep habits as a proxy for that. But I would assume there's a lot of noise, yes? So for instance, let's say you're a night person, by nature, but your job forces you to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
Or let's say you're a night person, but you don't have an incandescent light bulb, you have a neon light bulb or something like that. That first for all is off. So I would only expect this pattern to hold for large groups of about 1,000, maybe 2,000 people each. The good news is we have that kind of sample size. We have, in our first study on this, we had 13,000 people, and we can show that. That is true. But if you had only a couple hundred people, I would not expect this to hold.
Can I run an anomaly with you?
Sure.
This has been a mystery that's been bugging me all my life.
Tell me.
It's given me a lot of sleepless nights.
Tell me.
So when I first saw the image of the dress in 2015, it was on one of the posts on Twitter. And I remember seeing it as black and blue.
Okay.
Consistently.
Okay.
Saw many posts black and blue.
Okay.
And then I forgot about it.
Okay.
A week passed.
Yes.
A colleague at work said, hey, have you heard of this trend? I was like, yeah, I see it as black and blue. Pulled up the image and it was white and gold now for me. And ever since that day, I've only seen that as white and gold. So my question for you, and hopefully we can solve this mystery, is it possible that you can switch the colors you see within a week, or was I fooled?
Well, so first of all, that effect is so strong that some people straight up don't believe that this was the same image. So on these comments, online videos, some people also say, no, you are tricking me. These are different images or something like that. Yes. So most people do believe that what they see is what's out there. So this is so disorienting that they would rather conclude that somebody is tricking them. Yes, they switched the image. Yes.
Yeah.
So as you saw this early on with like news comments and news sites, people were like, oh, they changed the image.
Yeah.
Right. But no. So first of all, you're right. You are a huge anomaly, and I'll tell you in multiple ways. So first of all, about 1 in 100 people in our research can switch, more or less at will. All right, because their priors of what the light is probably so close that it can flip it one way or the other. Yes, based on daily form.
Okay.
But most people, including myself, switch from white and gold over time to black and blue. The more you see it, because you're like, oh, then you saw the actual dress, and that locks it in for most people that's what the color of the dress is. It's like called the true color bias. It's an anchor.
So knowledge of the dress changes it?
So the idea is, and I'm sure you've seen this online, if you know that strawberries are red, if you see a strawberry, even if there's no objectively red light or long wavelength light coming from it, you'll still see it as red because you know strawberries are red.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? So if you see strawberries over a red light filter, so if the robot would say there's no red light here, you subjectively will still see them as red because you're so sure that strawberries are red. Same thing is true for a dress. Once you show people the actual dress, it usually, not usually, but often flips. It flipped on me. I saw it for the first week as white and gold, but I had looked at it so long and so often for the first week that during my lecture, I remember that, it flipped on me during the lecture. I was like, whoa. It was so, and I've never seen it white and gold since. To go from black and blue to white and gold, that is I've never actually met someone. We
are two opposite ends of the spectrum. You went from white and gold to black and blue.
But in all seriousness, my research shows that most people switch from white and gold to black and blue. Very few people switch in the other direction. So my guess would be that you were very close in your like priors.
Okay.
And that's something locked into the other. There's also something interesting about this. So the brain doesn't say sort of. No, it's like it's a categorical thing. It's either this or that. So that's what I'm saying. It's an inference. These decisions are categorical. Either you're pregnant or not. Yes. Either it's either white and gold or it's black and blue. It's not like maybe it's somewhere in between. Which makes it so striking, and that's an interesting lesson here. So perception is much more categorical than reality, which is much more gradual. Right.
And because we're converting that analog reality into a digital
signal, that's a very good analogy. The reality is very gradual, shades of gray,
very continuous,
spectral,
and
we're
digitizing it. So,
but you are mentally digitizing into discrete bins. But why are you doing that? And the answer is to act, for action. So in other words, reality or people have a bias for action. Doesn't have to be true. It just has to be more true than your competitor. And while your competitor still sits around weighing the evidence, you already acted. And as a finance person, you can probably appreciate first mover advantage. So basically, evolution helps with first mover advantage. You don't have to be right. You just have to be first. And so you jump to these conclusions to act right. And what right means, out-competing evolutionarily. So you picked the berries that are red in the green foliage, and by the time your competitor, historically and evolutionarily, made up their mind, you already ate them and they die and you are still here.
I'm sure there's a more superior intelligent being out there that doesn't need to digitize it.
Yes.
Probably sees a
Sees
continuous
the entire-
spectrum of colors.
In 57 dimensions,
And
yes. Or who
what-
knows how many dimensions.
What a magical reality that
Yes.
would be. While we're talking about, well, firstly, thank you for solving that mystery. I can sleep peacefully at night, finally.
Yes.
Interesting that I went the opposite way. And ever since that day, I've always seen white and gold. So
Right.
it was just that brief one
But
week.
that's, by the way, what is so striking about this. In a lot of these perceptual illusions, like the duck rabbit or the face vase illusion, Rubin's vase, yes, you can switch within a reasonable time frame. The spinning dancer.
Yeah.
But this is very sticky, which suggests that you're integrating over a lot of life experience. Yes, it's very that's what I found so interesting. When I first realized, I was like, "Whoa!" Like we have to need a bigger boat. This is not like when this came out, a lot of people dismissed this. Oh, it's just a screen brightness or whatever. But I was like, no. This is very interesting. We need to study this, and that's what I did. So I researched it.
So many deeper questions to ask you, but let's cover another illusion and then we'll dive into the broader questions.
But just briefly, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just very excited.
Of course.
But this is already a very important realization here. Reality, whatever it is probably very gradual, very, very complex, very high dimensional. But it's actually too much information. We can't handle it. We have to digitize it and for action. Either there is a tiger out there or not. And that makes a difference, yes? You have to act.